Welcome to our first lesson on fractions. Let's recap on some important things you need to know. Firstly, it's important to know that fractions are equal parts of a whole amount. So in this first rectangle, I have divided it up into 3 parts. However, you can see that they are unequal. So this means that if I were to shade in one out of the 3 parts, it would be incorrect to say that 1/3 is shaded since not all the parts are the same size. In my second example, I've divided the rectangle up into 3 parts again, but this time they are equal parts. This means that if I were to color in one out of the 3 parts, I could say that 1/3 is shaded, and this would be correct. Pause the video and try to identify which of these images show fractions. In other words, which of them have been divided into equal parts. So in the first one, we can see that this is not an example of a fraction. The next 2 shapes do show fractions. They are all equal parts. The next circle and triangle have not been divided into equal parts. The next 4 shapes have been divided into equal parts. And the last triangle is not an example of fractions. Let's take a moment to talk about what we are seeing when we read a fraction. The number at the top of the fraction shows only a part of a whole amount, while the number at the bottom of the fraction shows the whole amount of what you're working with. For example, this circle has been divided into 4 parts. That would be the whole amount of parts, but if I colored in only one of those sectors, I will have only colored in 1 out of the 4 parts. This is why we then write 1/4 as a fraction to represent the shaded part. The number at the top is called the numerator, while the number at the bottom is called the denominator. The line separating the 2 numbers actually represents the divide sign. This means that 1/4 can actually be written as 1 divided by 4 as well. In fact, if you take a look at the divide sign itself, it is actually a little fraction. Do you see the dots, or in this case, if I had to imagine I've zoomed in, the circles, above and below the line? They remind us that this is where numbers can go if you want to write it as a fraction. When we talk about fractions, we have special names for certain cases. When we have a shape that has been divided into 2 equal parts, we have halves. And if we were to shade in one of those parts, we would write it as 1/2, and we would read that as 1/2. If we have a shape divided into 3 equal parts, we are working with thirds. Here I've shaded in 2 out of 3 parts, so I would read this as 2/3 shaded. If we are working with a shape divided into 4 equal parts, we are working with quarters. I have shaded in 3 of these parts, so I can say that 3/4 have been shaded. For all the other fractions, we end with the letters THS. So for example, 5 equal parts is fifths, 6 equal parts is sixths, and so on. Pause the video and try to answer this table on your own. Let's see how you did. For our first shape, the total number of parts is 7. We have shaded in 4 parts and 3 parts have not been shaded. So the fraction shaded is 4/7, and the fraction not shaded is 3/7. For number 2, our heart has been divided into 2 parts. 1 part has been shaded while the other part has not been shaded. This means that half is shaded and half is not shaded. Our trapezium has been divided into 3 equal triangles. 1 part has been shaded while 2 parts are unshaded. This means that 1/3 of the shape is shaded while 2/3 of the shape is unshaded. We have divided our rectangle into 5 equal parts. 3 parts have been shaded while 2 parts are unshaded. This means that 3/5 of the shape is shaded while 2/5 is unshaded. Our next shape has been divided into 8 equal parts. 1 part is shaded while 7 parts are unshaded. This means that 1/8 is shaded and 7/8 is unshaded. Next, we have a shape divided into 6 equal parts. 5 of the parts have been colored in, while 1 part has not. This means that 5/6 of the shape is shaded, while 1/6 of the shape is unshaded. Lastly, for our circle, it has been divided into 4 equal parts. 2 parts are shaded and 2 parts are unshaded. So in other words, we can say that 2/4 are shaded while 2/4 are unshaded. If you were looking closely enough at this one, you could have noticed that half of the circle has been shaded while half of the circle has been unshaded. It is interesting to note that if I were to add the numerators for fractions shaded and unshaded, they would always add up to the total number of parts. This is because adding them together would make up one whole amount. So if you know that 4 out of 7 parts are shaded, for example, you can always calculate the number of unshaded parts by subtracting the shaded parts from the total parts. And there we go. This brings our crash course in fractions to an end.